What's going on, Duck Nation, College Football Nation? This is UODuckBros back for probably what I'm going to say is going to be our favorite video of the entire year.
Without a doubt.
Hands down. Like, the Tennessee video was awesome, but this is way more important than that. By the way, let me just throw this out here real quick because we had people asking. The reason why we didn't do a video for Colorado, well, there were a couple reasons for that. A, because Colorado sucks and it wasn't worth it. Two, we were both really sick. We both caught the flu, and it was really bad, and so we definitely weren't up for that at all. And again, Colorado sucks, so we didn't need to do it. So now that we're not sick anymore, now we're doing this, so that's why we're just clearing that up now. Now, to kick things off.
This is Husky Hate Week. This is probably the best week for a Duck fan the entire year. Well, maybe outside of the Civil War game, but
no, this is way. I
think this
personally. I think that this is way more important than the Civil War. Like, there's so much more like raw hatred between Ducks and Husky fans than there would ever be between Ducks and Beaver fans because it's different. It's a different thing altogether.
I'm excited just because this is going to be a national game. It's going to be game day. It's going to be it's big time. It's finally Washington. You're relevant again. Congratulations.
Well, you're relevant for now.
You're relevant because you're playing Oregon, but that's really that's just something else. But I think this rivalry obviously is known here in the Pacific Northwest and within the Pac-12 community. Obviously, if you're online or if you see blogs and there's anything that has to do with Oregon and U of O, they're back and forth all day long for hours and hours and hours. But I think what's great about it is that it finally is going to get the national attention that it deserves because, you hear about the Iron Bowl, you hear about, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Notre Dame, and those are all great. Don't get me wrong. They have a lot of tradition, but this game, believe me, is right there.
The funniest thing about it, too, and I was listening to the radio the other day, and like this rivalry has been going on for, 113 years now. And I swear to God, nobody in the media even knew that this was even a rivalry at all. Like I think I heard Kirk Herbstreit say something about it, how he had no clue whatsoever that this rivalry was what it is.
Yeah, it's 105 years, by the way, just to clear that.
I thought it was in 1900.
1900, but we didn't play a few.
Oh, well, okay. So, like, longevity-wise, it did, but technicality-wise, it didn't.
Right. So, it's just going to be a really fun game. I'm going to be up there personally myself. I'm going to go up there with a buddy of mine.
Not me.
So, I'm going to be at the new stadium. I'm going to be in the pit. I'm going to be repping the Ducks, and it's going to be a pretty hostile environment for just about every Duck fan there. I can't wait to get up there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a really, really good time. But, this video had to be made because this entire week has just been insane so far. Twitter's just been off the chain with back and forth banner between Ducks and Huskies. And, of course, some USC fans, for whatever reason, feel like they need to get in on this for whatever reason. I don't know why that is.
Their team sucks, so they have nothing else to do.
Probably.
So let's clear the air a little bit here. Because keep in mind, I think everybody in the world knows this, the Ducks have won, 14 out of the last 18 of these, pretty much ever since Don James decided to call it quits, which I thought was just spectacular, by the way. The Ducks have had a stranglehold on this series, winning 14 of the last 18, like I said, 9 out of the last 9. And there's been some serious stuff here. We have outscored, and by we I mean Oregon because, I'm not a representation of the team itself. Oregon has outscored Washington 585 to 417. It's a pretty hefty margin.
I think that's 160 points difference?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
So, and in that average span of this win streak, which has been glorious, I think it was 25 points per game or close to 26 points per game we've been averaging victories by. And
in these last 9 games, not the
entire thing, but going back 18 years, going 14-4, that's a pretty gosh darn impressive thing. And it's been lovely. I'm not going to lie to you. This is I look forward to beating Washington over just about, I mean, actually over anyone else.
Besides, like, Alabama, I think.
Well, I mean, anybody in the SEC is always a plus, but when you know, as an Oregon fan growing up, and yes, I was an Oregon fan, we both were Oregon fans before 1994. I know a lot of Washington fans like to say, you know, you've only been a fan since 94.
Or since they were really good.
Or since, you know, for 5 years ago. But we really have been longtime fans.
We remember what it was like when Oregon was really bad.
I was born in 1983, the same year of the Toilet Bowl game, which was a 0-0 tie between Oregon and Oregon State, which if that gives you any indication, that means that Oregon was really, really bad. And I've been through a lot of those frustrating years of watching Oregon just suck. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, we know the history between Washington and Oregon. This series has been dominated by Washington. Historically, it's
16-game lead, I think.
Yeah, it's still, we still understand that we have a long way to go and that it's going to be, we have a long hill to climb. But, you know, this last 9 years has been absolutely spectacular. And I hope that this Saturday we just go in there and make it a whole decade, you know, because then they've got to come back to Autzen, and I think they'll lose there too. So just keep it going for as long as we can. Obviously, it won't happen forever, but while it's going and while we've got this momentum and while we have, you know, the players that we have and all that stuff going for us, we may as well just continue to hope that it rides out for as long as it can. Currently, we have the longest streak in this rivalry as far as consecutive games won.
Sure. Washington had 4 streaks of 6 wins in a row.
Right.
Whoop-de-doo. But Oregon still holds the 9-game strangle.
Yeah, and just to put it in perspective, for 9 years, a lot of things have happened.
Yeah, let's go back to 2003, which was the last time that Washington beat Oregon. Here's some things that were going on in the world when that happened.
We have a popular rap artist that you may know by the name of Curtis Jackson, a.k.a. 50 Cent. Came out with his debut album, In the Club. I know everybody remembers that, at least any of you rap heads out there. That was the #1 song back then.
The #1 movie back in 2003 was Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
And then America decided that they did not want to acknowledge that we were eating French fries, but we were actually eating freedom fries.
Didn't last very. I'm actually really glad that we.
I'm glad that we went back to French fries.
Really stupid. The best part though, gas was $1.83. By the way,
wow,
national average. In Oregon, it might have been a little bit less than that, but
I wish we could go back to that though.
Yeah, we never will.
Probably not.
Who's in office now? That's a shot for you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We're going to keep this minimal on the politics.
Yes.
You know,
so
there's been a lot of things that have happened. The Matrix movies came out that year, the last 2 at least. Arnold Schwarzenegger was dubbed the Governor. You know, just a lot of things have happened. LSU and USC, they shared a national title that year.
Which doesn't make any sense. The bit of trivia, by the way, when that whole thing happened, there were three teams in the country that voted against LSU being the #1 team, of which one of those teams was Oregon. Yeah. I love to ruin things for people. So with that all out of the way, which the whole shared title thing to me just doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's not for us to decide, and that's not for us to talk about.
We've already made our video saying that, you know, shared titles or shared national champions is absolute crap, of which Washington is definitely part of that conversation because they had a couple of those, i.e. like 1960, and, you know, we're not going to get into that. I could sit here and tell you for hours that, you know, Washington doesn't have a real national championship.
But we know that, you know, from arguing about this for years and years with Washington fans, and it just doesn't ever go anywhere. So we won't even get into that. But what we will get into at this point, you know, we've done...
Real quick, though. All I'm going to say is if you didn't play a championship game, it doesn't count. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so I think at this point we really just need to get into the
actual game.
The game here. So we basically have a vastly improved Washington team, which we obviously understand. Keith Price is playing really good football. The defense is a lot better. The guys are a lot faster, and we get that. And if the Stanford game is any indication as to how far you guys have come, then you guys are going to be giving us a pretty dang good game. So we'll see.
The point spread sits at 14 as of right now,
which I actually think,
is a fair number.
Is a fair number, actually.
We're not going to be those. We're not going to be those Oregon fans, because they do exist, that think that we're just going to walk in there and we're going to completely destroy you, and that's going to be the end of that.
I mean, if we did, I would absolutely love that.
Could they do that? Absolutely.
I personally, and I know you feel the same way, I don't think that we've even played our best game yet. I think we haven't even scratched the surface as to how good Oregon can really be. And I think, going into this game, I still think, as good as Washington has played, I think we're just across the board a better team. I think we have more depth, which I think is very, very important going into the third and fourth quarter. I think our skill position players, minus maybe tight end and maybe one or two receivers here and there, I think overall across the board we're just a stronger team. We've been running this offense a lot longer, which I think gives us an advantage. And I think our quarterback is he's just a special player.
He's the front runner for the Heisman for a reason. I mean, they're not just saying it because he is who he is. He's been putting up the numbers to prove it.
I just think that, I think the first half is going to be kind of like an exchange of, points. I think Washington is definitely going to put up some points. And I think, if you get into a shootout with Oregon, I think Oregon wins that all day. And I think even if it stayed into the lower, like into the 30s or, maybe high or low 40s, I still think if it gets into one of those situations where it's more of a defensive struggle, I still think Oregon wins that as well. I think across the board, we're more talented defensively. I just think there's really no way, unless we just come in there and play completely uncharacteristic as to what Oregon is capable of. I don't really see Washington winning this game at all. And that's not just me being an Oregon fan and being a homer. That's just me being as objective as possible, looking at these two teams and just saying that I just think Oregon at this point has more depth, and I think they're just more talented.
Can Washington win this game?
Absolutely.
Of course they can.
Absolutely.
We're not saying there's absolutely no chance that Washington wins this game, because they certainly can. They have the tools that they can win this game. But I think that it would take a lot of things happening a certain way for that to happen. I think that because Washington is one of the most penalized teams in all of college football, I think that poses a very large problem. There's obviously a lot of discipline issues that they have that Oregon doesn't have. Oregon gets penalized too, but not to that same extent. I think that also
special teams is
atrocious, and Stanford exploited that. And obviously Oregon's no slouch in the special teams game. I mean, they're pretty damn good at that. Another thing, and this may be purely concept wise, but the fact that you go and you play a bruiser game with Stanford where people are getting knocked around, and Bishop Sankey carries the ball, 30-something times?
Yeah.
After carrying it 40 times the game before that. That's a lot of carries for a guy over a couple of weeks. That's going to wear him down. Keith Price got beaten and battered a few times during that game, whether they were on late hits or not.
Right.
That's gonna make a difference. And I think also the idea of you play a team like Stanford that's a line them up and bruise the hell out of you. It's like literally night and day when you think of style of gameplay to prepare for. You go from the slowest thing in the world to essentially the fastest thing in the world outside of Baylor, I would say.
Right.
Which that's for a different story, but I think that it's a nightmare, like literally completely flipping your game plan that you prepare for over the span of 5 days or so. Totally having to flip that upside down is a nightmare for having to prepare for that. And it's I think that could be an issue as well.
Yeah, so I mean, with all that said, I think really at this point, it's going to come down to who takes care of the ball. We already know that. I've listened to your coach. He said the same thing. Ball security, creating turnovers. It's going to be who creates turnovers, who gets stops, all of those things. But in the end, I just don't see Washington coming up with enough stops or making enough plays to beat Oregon. I think they're still a couple years off from being able to acquire the depth and acquire the type of players that you have to cater to the offense that you just installed this year. So with that said, I think at this point, I think it's all over, but really let's get some score predictions. What do you have going for this game?
For me, and it feels weird, like not, predicting a landslide for once, but what I'm thinking is it's still going to be a bit of a shootout, not to the extent that we've seen from Oregon in virtually every game this season. I think it'll be the first time that they go under 55 points. I'm going to say it's going to be kind of like a 2010 Stanford type of score where it's 42-31 Oregon wins. I think that it's close for a portion of the game, but then Oregon kind of pulls away. Because Oregon, they're like a third quarter team. I've noticed this, where when those halftime adjustments happen, it happens, and it happens fast. And I think that that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be relatively low scoring in the first half, and then Oregon's going to blow the doors off of it. I think that those adjustments are going to be the key, and then Washington will score late, and that's going to be your score. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm more of a. I still think, regardless of the hostile environment and how much more Washington has improved, I think we still are going to win this game by a sizable margin. I'm going to go ahead and say that this game is going to be 48-28 Oregon, and I think it'll be. I think Washington will get a couple touchdowns late. I think it could be more lopsided than that, but I think because they get a couple touchdowns late is going to make it a little bit more like a closer game. But with that being said, I can't wait to get up there. I know everybody is getting ready for this game. It's going to be crazy and it's going to be fun. So I hope everybody enjoys themselves. Stay safe wherever you are, and I think that covers it, huh?
Yep, I think so.
All right, well, this is UODuckBros, and we're signing off. Hope you guys enjoy the game. As always, go Ducks.
Go Ducks. He's got the gloves.
Yes, I do.